Hello and good day. Today I'm coming to you to talk about beer contests. There are a lot of beer contests out there to where you can enter your beers and have them critiqued and judged by people who know what they're doing. And I just want to explain a little bit about what they're all about. I've noticed on a handful of websites and different Facebook groups and other things on the internet that there's a lot of interest in contests and a lot of people have a lot of questions, so I hope to address some of them. Just a little background on me. I am a BJCP certified beer judge. I've entered lots of contests and I've judged lots of contests. So I have a pretty decent idea of what to expect and what you're going to experience if you enter a contest. I've never organized a contest or put one together, but I have a whole lot of respect for the people that do it. They go through a lot of work to make these contests up and to make them work, and really hats off to them. But anyway, moving forward. If you brew your beers, you're typically trying to brew a specific kind of beer. Now, the beer that you are trying to brew might be the style that you want to enter it into a beer contest. Now, the BJCP recognizes 35 beer styles. And now within those 30, I've got some notes here, so let me refer to them for a second. Excuse me, there are 34 major BJCP categories, and within those categories are numerous subcategories. Now, there is a BJCP style guide that you can Google on the internet and download it. It's about 90 pages. You can get it in either a Microsoft Word document format or a PDF format. But you can read through it and it'll tell you all about the different styles and what judges expect to find in a particular style. Now, in most contests that I've been involved in, scoring is done using the BJCP Scoresheet. Now, it looks like this. Again, you can Google it, Google BJCP Scoresheet, and it'll come up with the PDF, and you can look at it. You can follow along with me. Pause the video right now and go print it off, and you can follow along. But most contests use that. Now, that doesn't mean they have to use that. You can organize a contest, and the organizer can have their own scoring process. They don't necessarily have to follow this particular score sheet guideline. They just have to have a process in place and a way to judge and categorize the beers. Anyway, moving forward on actually deciding what you're going to enter and how you're going to enter. Let's say you've made a really good beer. It's a IPA, or at least that's what you tried to brew. Well, you get the beer done and you drink it and you realize it's not really as hoppy as you thought it was going to be, and it's really more of a pale ale than an IPA. Well, if you're going to enter that in a contest, just because you were trying to brew an IPA doesn't mean you have to enter it as an IPA. You can enter it in any category you want, and you want to pick a category that matches the beer that you've brewed. The beer judges aren't going to know what you tried to brew. All they're going to know is what you entered and what category you entered it in. So by all means, if your IPA turned out to be a pale ale, enter it as a pale ale. It may score really good as a pale ale. It might be an awesome beer, but if you enter it as an IPA, it's going to score not very well because it's not an IPA. So you got to keep that in mind when you're entering a contest. Make sure you enter the beer you brewed in the appropriate category for what it tastes like. When beers are scored, if they use the beer score sheet that the BJCP publishes, there are 5 categories that you can obtain points in. Now, these categories are aroma, appearance, flavor, mouthfeel, and overall impression. Each one of those categories has a maximum point value that can be awarded for what is found in that category. For example, aroma, which is comments of aroma for malt, hops, other flavors, maybe if it's a Berliner Weiss, if you can smell some coriander, something like that. Aroma gets 12 points. Appearance is 3 points. Now, appearance is the color, the clarity, head retention, the color of the head, cloudy clear, brilliantly clear, things like that. Now appearance is 3 points. The next category, flavor, is worth 20 points. Now in the flavor category, that's really the heart of the beer. The beer judges look for the malt flavoring, hops flavoring, any other characteristics that they would expect in that particular style, finish, aftertaste, if it's caramely, if it's roasty, if it's, like I said, Berliner Weiss, if it's got some coriander taste and smell in it, some banana flavoring. They'll look at that for the category that they are judging against. The next category is mouthfeel. Now that is the thickness of the beer, the body of the beer, whether, I mean, it's alcoholic, warmth, crispiness, creaminess, astringency, puckering, that the judge will put into the mouthfeel category, and that's worth 5 points. And then the final category of overall impression is 10 points. Now that's where the beer judge will say whether they really like this beer, whether it was an okay beer but there were some things that could have been better, or whether the beer wasn't a very good beer, and it wasn't a beer that came close to the category. Now beer judges really are encouraged to be polite. We don't want to discourage beer makers, home brewers. Nobody wants to be told that their beer really sucks and you should pour it down the drain. But if a beer is bad, you got to be kind of honest in a polite and nice way. The beer had a nice recipe, but there were some flaws that took away from what you were going after. Now, a good beer judge, one that has some experience and that knows a little bit about brewing, can give you some advice. Like, for example, if it's a beer that comes off really alcoholic, they might tell you to raise your mash temperature a little bit. A beer judge should know what it would take to make things better. And if not, they typically have some reference materials with them that they can pick up and find out what it tells it. If they taste diacetyl in a lager, they might advise you to raise your fermentation temperature at the end of fermentation so that you have a diacetyl rest for that lager and the yeast eats up the diacetyl. Anyway, that's what beer judging is about, and that's what you'll find out on these score sheets. Now there's also a section on the score sheet for things that they've noticed, different descriptors, like a green apple flavor, acetaldehyde, again, like I said, diacetyl, DMS, buttery flavor. Some of these might be off flavors, some of them might be flavors that you would expect to find in that beer style, but the beer judge should note that. Now, finally, when they total up all your scores, you have a scoring range. Now, if you had perfect scores in every category, you'd score 50 points. Now, I've never had a 50-point beer. I've only talked to a couple people that claim they've had 50-point beers. It's next to impossible to get an absolutely perfect beer. That's like the angel's share of whiskey. Most beers I have seen at contests, the vast majority score anywhere from 20 to 23 points on up to low to mid 40s. A really, really good beer, best of show beer, is probably going to be in the 40-point range, 40 to 45-point range. Most workman beers, good drinking beers, nice beers that you want to drink at home, are probably somewhere in the 30s. So, I mean, when you get your score sheet back, don't be discouraged. Take the feedback in the way it's intended, positive feedback, and ways to help you brew better. And enjoy. I mean, it's always good to have an impartial person tell you about your beer, and to have somebody who has a little bit of knowledge tell you what you can do to make your beer better. So, by all means, enter the contest. Don't be afraid. Ship your beers off to wherever you need to ship them to get them going. Don't get discouraged if you don't get the scores you thought you should get. move on, brew it next time, try and make some minor changes and see what you can do to make it better. Well, there are a couple more things I wanted to mention before I finish. First of all, when you're shipping beers to a contest, be aware that the United States Post Office does not allow shipping of alcohol via the Postal Service. So you have to ship it with FedEx or UPS. Another thing, and I don't have any right here, when you send your bottles, make sure there's no identifiable markings on them. Remove all labels you might have put on them. If the caps have something on them, take a magic marker and mark it off. Beer contests will tell you how they want the bottle sent to them. They may have you print off a label sheet and rubber band it to the bottle or tape it to the bottle. It really depends on the contest and how they want to deal with their bottles. But just some things you might want to know, might need to know. Standard 12-ounce bottles are just fine. There's no need to send swing tops or bombers. Really, that's just a waste of a good big bottle for a bomber and a swing top. It makes no difference to the people judging. I would definitely make sure when you send your bottles, and if you're reusing commercial bottles, take the labels off. I've actually seen people turn in contest bottles with the commercial label still on it. In my mind, that's tacky. That gives me a bad impression of the beer right off the bat. If the people don't take the time to remove the labels off the bottles, then how much time did they really take making a good beer? And it might be a great beer, but it just doesn't sit right with me. Personal thing. Anyhow, finally, let me see. You can use pretty much any 12-ounce bottle. Of course, I would highly recommend using brown bottles. Don't use clear bottles or green bottles. That could cause your beer to get light struck and skunky. You can use bottles from breweries like New Belgium, Sam Adams, that might have molded names on them. That's acceptable under BJCP guidelines. Again, as long as the labels are removed from the bottle and there's no identifiable characteristic on it, any bottle is perfectly fine. So anyway, with that, I hope you learned something. I appreciate you watching my video. Please subscribe to my channel and enjoy entering contests. Have fun with it. Take the feedback to heart, and hopefully the feedback will help you be a great brewer. So we all look forward to good beers. So take care and cheers.